where the truth cuts through.
I've got Ashley Dillard with me today. Now, Ashley is a fellow podcaster. She is a clinician, has all kinds of stuff. Plus, she's got a fire background. So, Ashley, why don't you tell our listeners who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you're at right now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on your show. It's fun to continue our conversation. So, thank you for that to start off, and thank you for everyone who's listening. But I am Ashley Dillard. I'm a retired firefighter-paramedic. So, I spent just short of 10 years online doing the work and have transitioned out of that into a new season of being a different kind of helper. So now I'm on the other side doing mental health work, mostly with first responders, military, and their spouses. And I get to show up for my brothers and sisters who are still online in a different kind of capacity. So my mission is to end the suffering. I think there's a lot of pain and suffering happening out there. There's a lot of pain and suffering happening in the world of first responders, and I am on a mission to do my part to help change that and to make things different so people can have incredibly healthy lives, incredibly healthy careers, relationships, all the things.
Absolutely. And, when you find someone that can handle both the clinical side and have a background in the industry, that's a very rare combination. There are a few clinicians around the country that can do that. And I think that makes you unique in being able to kind of carry on the conversation a little bit further. And if you've not heard her podcast, it's Sitting Around the Fire. And we've done an episode there where we talked about mental fitness. And anyway, so this is a continuation. Go check that out. She'll tell you about that at the end. But Ashley, what's the biggest myth people believe about mental health or mental fitness when it comes to the fire service?
Yeah, this is such a good question, and it's one of my favorite questions because I think I'm so passionate and fired up about it. Is people have this belief, this idea around what therapy is, for one, or maybe they've seen some depiction of therapy in the movies or a TV show or things like that, and they think it's sitting across the table from a guy wearing a suit with a notepad and or laying on the couch doing this whole therapy work.
Talking about your mother.
Yeah, exactly, which is funny, but we all have this perception or this idea around what therapy is, and I think there's a huge movement towards, but still a lot of work around changing that. Is therapy is so much different than what you think it is, and it's not. There's so many cool modalities out there now as well, where it's not always what it used to be. It's not just sitting down and talking about things or somebody asking you to share your deepest, darkest feelings all the time, but it really is, as you reflect on it a lot, it's part of a wellness routine. And I speak to it a lot as therapy as a maintenance program, not something where you're constantly in this crash recovery type state after things have gotten really bad. Now I'm going to therapy. It's recognizing and realizing the world is stressful. Life has stresses within it, and we all need that place where we can go decompress or to talk about things, to have an authentic connection with somebody, to be able to just kind of work things out in a place. Even if you're just working on self-growth, it doesn't always have to be addressing specific traumas or healing from things like that. Therapy can be used for growth as well. So I'd really love for us to move away from this old model of what we think therapy is and recognize that it's so much different and it's so progressive now and what the options are, that you just need to find the tool that fits for you, that resonates with you. And that's needs to become a maintenance program, just like you do maintenance on your car or on things around the house. It needs to be seen as part of this routine. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, all this needs to become a wellness program, for lack of a better way to say it.
I got you. Now, one of the things you mentioned were different modalities, and you mentioned the old school talk it out. But what are some of the other modalities that you're seeing as a professional that are being put into the toolkits of, I guess, of firefighters now to be able to deal with different issues that they may encounter?
hmm Yeah, one I coined myself as a non-traditional therapist because I'm never gonna wear a pantsuit into a session for sure. Like the only time I wore a pantsuit was when I had to interview for the fire job, and that will be the one and only time I ever wear a pantsuit again. But the work specifically that I do that's out of the box is I work a lot with hypnosis, and I do work with the nervous system and the body. I do work with some of the ketamine assisted psychotherapy. So some of the different modalities in that way that I work with. But there are other things out there like equine therapy, there's art therapy, there's therapy involving movement, being outdoors. There's different kind of groups you can tap into. There's things like neurofeedback and EMDR, brain mapping, eye movement therapy. There's so many different things out there to try. I think it's just kind of an excuse you're going to use for yourself if you say, oh, I'm not going to go to therapy because it's just going to be talking to somebody. Is like, you need to get over that excuse, start to explore some of the other modalities, because I think as first responders, we need those different modalities. Is that we don't work in traditional environments, we don't have traditional schedules. Our brains are wired differently now based on the work that we've done. Is you're going to need some of these non-traditional modalities to get you where do you want to be and to get to the ultimate state of life that you want to be in and the goals you want to achieve. Is you're going to have to start to explore outside the box.
So that does make a lot of sense. And, talking about the different modalities and the different things that you do as a professional, when you start talking about the firefighter individually, when do coping skills stop being enough and real support become necessary? When is it we can't do it ourselves and we need to engage somebody that's smarter than us?
I would say before you even have the question in your mind pop up, is that you need to be tapping into some higher resources. So the goal with therapy, I see it as it's not meant to be something that puts a band-aid on, but it gives you the opportunity to do some of the deeper reflection and the deeper work. And then you as the individual have to have the responsibility and the accountability to go out there and do the work yourself. And so you need, just like we all have to go learn new skills, that's why we go to different trainings, whether it's forced entry or investigations or fire tactics. We go to trainings because we learn new ways of doing things. And that's also what therapy is going to learn these new tools and these new tactics on how to do stuff. So I always recommend to people, like, let's not wait until you're in the midst of the storm. Like, learn some of these tools and tactics now. Like, if you can clear your buttons and your triggers before life gets to you in that way, you're so much better off. So go do the work before you're in the midst of chaos or grief or whatever it is that you're sitting in. Is go do the work ahead of time. So when you ask, like, when do you recognize that the coping mechanisms are no longer working, is because they're really never working for you. It's just a band-aid that you're putting on a bigger problem. And paying attention to coping can look like so many different things for so many different people. It can look like picking up more overtime, overworking, signing up for shifts all the time. It can look like sleep issues showing up. It can look like eating patterns changing, your relationships changing, being more irritable, or finding yourself distancing from other people, or on the opposite, like you've got to be around people all the time. It can look like engaging in dangerous kind of behaviors, whether it's with substances or excessive gambling or spending or Any of these kind of things can all be, these are symptoms of a bigger problem that are underneath the surface. So I would say just go clean your house. Like, go do the work before you even get to that point. There's nothing wrong with getting equipped with the tools and the tactics ahead of time so you're not playing catch up. It's kind of almost like thinking about, we're never going to plan for any kind of fire. We're just going to go in and wing it when we get there and see what happens. Is like, that's actually like really insane. Nobody would ever say that at a fire department, or you'd be a really terrible fire department. That's why we train. That's why we practice. That's why we throw out different scenarios. And that's exactly what therapy will help you do, is to equip you for those scenarios when they come up.
That is a good description, I think, of how therapy should be viewed. Now, a lot of times, if somebody's already started putting the work in, or maybe they haven't hit that wall yet to where they really do need to dig in and get some more help, what as a, say, a chief officer or as a company officer, what are some of the signs that we can look for in our guys and girls that maybe indicate that there's something going on? Maybe it's a silent struggle, something like that. What are some things that we can look for, and how can we address them?
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought this question up to the surface, because I think this is one of the places where we're lacking within the culture for our departments, is our leadership seeing this. And one of the biggest signs, things that I see when people come to do work with me, is a lot of times the leadership has no idea what's going on, but they start to kind of recognize that job performance or behaviors start to struggle, and therefore these folks are actually like getting disciplined. So it's like, oh, he's calling out sick, he must be wasting his sick time, or like it's like they're not getting along with other people, or he's not really putting in the effort. Whatever it is, I start to see that show up more in that sense, is like the job performance side becomes impacted. The officers are then like taking the administrative, like disciplinary action to it, but nobody's asking the back end questions of like, hey, what is actually going on in this guy's life or this gal's life? What is happening at home? Like, what are the stressors that's either going on at home or in the job? Is we're automatically drifting towards discipline. And I think that's where we're missing the mark huge with people, is that if you asked 10 out of 10 of those people, they would tell you, oh, like, I'm in the midst of going through a divorce, or I have a kid who's struggling in school, being bullied, or my spouse is a first responder and we have 2 days off a week together. Whatever it is, or going through, I mean, the other big thing is health issues, like people having these undercover health issues going on. And our leadership is not asking those questions. We're just assuming that people want to do a crappy job, or they don't really want to do the job. And I think that is where we're missing this so badly, is checking in and saying, what's going on in life for you? Like, and the leadership in the department showing up to support those individuals. And that would just change everything. It would be so much nicer if that was the way it went.
So we see the what, the action we have to take, but we need to ask, why do we see the problem? I think that's what you were driving at. And, sometimes I think we have to kind of boil it down for those of us that work at the fire department, because sometimes we don't understand every angle. We tend to be very reactive and not proactive. Having come from the fire service, I think you're pretty well aware of that. And we just want to kind of get ahead of it. But at the same time, why are we at this point? So that is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, none of us want to show up to the job and do a bad job at it. Nobody wants to, nobody's trying to sabotage, or wants to, we're really proud of doing the job, and we've all worked really hard to get where we are within it. And so I think really checking your ego, checking yourself, and asking those underneath questions about, hey, this is going on, what's happening? Can we show up for you? And not, the other big problem I see a lot of people come through my practice is they're worried about the discipline side of things. If I ask for help, then what does that mean for me? Does it mean like I'm going to get taken offline, or does it mean I'm at threat of losing my job? Are people going to see me differently? All of these things that come with even just asking for help or putting it out there is really stepping up as departments and supporting people and equipping them with resources that shares and promotes this message of like, we see you, we hear you, but we're here to support you. We're not here to discipline you, or we're not here to treat you differently, as we actually value your mental health and we want you to be healthy firefighters, healthy first responders doing the job.
Excellent. So if somebody in our audience says, hey, I want to be a healthy first responder, I want to be a good firefighter, I want to get ahead of this, what does effective mental fitness look like day to day? What are some of the things we can do? What should we be watching for in ourselves that might give some indication as to the quality of life we have?
Yeah, we need to look at mental health just like we look at our other wellness routines. So every day we get up, we, should be drinking good, ample amounts of water. We should, be moving our body, doing some kind of fitness, fueling our body with good food. Is realizing like the mental health side requires the same kind of intention behind it. So whatever that looks like for an individual, whether they have some kind of prayer or meditation practice, whether they do, spend time outside in nature, whether they're intentionally connecting with others, they're diving into therapy, they're connecting in with other resources and groups. But it really has to become part of your enveloped routine, just like we know I'll say not all, most firefighters love going to the gym, or working out. It needs to be viewed in the same way, if not more important, because if your mental status is not well, if you're not talking to yourself well in a positive way, literally every cell in your body is impacted. So you're actually not going to get that good of a workout. You're not going to develop more muscle mass or endurance. Your body is working against you based on how you're talking to yourself. And so it has to be this all-encompassed global take at your mental fitness, just like you put investment into every other area of your life, taking supplements, whatever it is that you do, as part of your routines. It really does have to become a practice in the same way so that you can show up at the job and show up at home outside of work, as your best self, really. It has to be a daily effort, a daily routine.
So when we talk about doing those types of things, a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I think a lot of people may be confused by it, is self-care. What are self-care routines? I know some people, they like to journal. Some people, like you mentioned, the meditation. What are some other self-care, briefly, I guess, things that we could do to take care of our own mental fitness?
Yeah, first off, I've actually moved away from using the term self-care because I think a lot of people start to find this turns into another thing I have to do, and it feels more like a burden or a task rather than something that fills your cup. So I shifted the language around self-care as to what is my practice, essentially. What are the things I do for myself? Because it feels differently to me in that way, is not another thing on the to-do list, but this is just part of how I show up for myself, how I take care of myself. So I always usually recommend people have some kind of, whether it's meditation, and that's a whole nother thing to dive into and explain what people think meditation is. But if it's prayer, if you're spiritual or religious in that way, that also is great. But it can simply just be literally going outside, sitting in the sun, connecting back with nature. Those little things, I always recommend people start small, small things, whether you're going to do it for 5 minutes morning and evening or 5 minutes throughout the day. But people really have to find the ritual of renewal that works for them and that fills them up. So it's kind of different depending on person to person and what people are willing and open to exploring. If that kind of answers your question, hopefully.
It does, and I do like the fact that you're moving away from the term self care, because I think that can get very confusing, and in the fire service we have to put a label on everything, and if you've got a DIMO labeler, boy, we're in trouble. So it's one of those things where there's not a checklist for it, there's not a SOG for it. You've just got to figure out what works for you. So very good. So now, if you could change one thing about how the fire service approaches mental health tomorrow, what would it be?
This is a good question. In my heart of hearts, it's saying like we need a revamp in the system. It's kind of like looking at an old SOP or SOG and saying like, wow, this was something we did back in 1969. Like, does this apply for the kind of building construction we have now, or the, type of living arrangements that people have, or where we're at? As I feel like it's outdated. It needs a whole kind of revamp to the system. So I think it starts with like helping, like the work that you're doing and others are doing to encourage and inspire and re-educate around what mental health is and how it's important, how it's really truly impacting us. But then also just very much normalize it, and to make it as part of, this is just how you take care of yourself as a firefighter, as a first responder. It's normal to go to therapy. It's actually praised and advocated for that you go take care of yourself, that if you need time off, like you're not pressured or made to feel guilty or things like that. You're very well supported within the department. So I think helping set that up, as well as continuing to bolster up peer support, I think is huge, because peer support's doing really awesome things out there. Continuing to advocate and give resources, but opening up the minds of people and accepting that like what we're doing now isn't necessarily working or it isn't effective, and being okay that like we're not a bunch of robots programmed. Like we're supposed to have emotions, we're supposed to be human, we're supposed to feel things, and helping equip people to have a really healthy career and still be connected in that way. So I think it takes a whole revamp. I don't know. I don't have it all written out in a new SOP yet. I would do it. But I think it just starts from the top down. The leaders need to be healthy. Your officers need to be healthy. That trickles down to everybody online. Like, it has to be a priority. It has to be an investment. And so that looks different for everybody, but that's really the bottom line.
I got you. So let's go back and talk about peer support for a minute. I know that's another one of those words that gets thrown around a whole lot at conferences and peer support teams, and there are value to them, as you were mentioning. But let's say you have a really gnarly incident, and a lot of people are involved. It's not just one company or two companies, but say it impacts a community. At what point do you need to shift from peer support to, say, post-incident, I'm not going to say analysis, but, coming together and debriefing and things like that? At what point do you need to shift between those two things? I don't know if that question makes sense or not.
Yeah, it does. And I think I can bring a couple of examples that I saw when I was online, particularly, is I think the more complex the call, the event, the scene requires more dynamic help within that. If you have, 5 engine crews and 3 ambulances and all this kind of, which is what usually happens in the big ones, is like recognizing your scope and realizing, okay, this is bigger than, this is involving too many people. Like, we need to seek out extra help for this and get support from some other resources, as well as get people individualized support as well. My department, we had somebody who took their own life, who committed suicide.
Right.
And that was the first time that that had ever happened in our department. And we didn't really have a protocol or know how to handle that. And so it was kind of, figuring it out moment by moment. And because what do you do when like your whole department's affected and your peer support is kind of inactive, negated at that point when they're just as affected as everyone else.
Peer support needs
So-
peer support.
Exactly. And just recognizing that's why the peer support has the connections that it does is because, okay, if this is bigger than what we can handle internally, it's starting to get too complex or too many people, or we just feel the need to get support, that's why you partner with other neighboring departments, or you start to tap into some of the professional side of things to have people to come in to help that. And the really good thing about it, that releases the burden upon the department, right? Is like, now you're not trying to figure out how to handle this in the midst of doing the logistical side of things. Is now that is already taken care of by someone else who's going to make sure all aspects of it are addressed and they're all hit. But it's just like recognizing when you need to call a second or a third alarm, right? Is we're out of resources, we're tapped out, or this is way beyond what we can handle and we need to start like asking and navigating in for help.
I got you. So now I don't know if it's the same. I think you're, in Colorado where you are. I think it sounds like you guys got it pretty well sorted out. I know here in North Carolina, we've got it pretty well sorted. We've got several peer support teams, but it's almost like it shifts to the Wild West sometimes when it comes to be, it's time to start calling. Who do I call? Which one of these teams do I call? How do you vet the resources that are truly beneficial, whether it be an individual therapist or if it be, a peer support team or even dogs, bringing in the support dogs and things like that. How do you vet who's good, who's not great, who's maybe can work to a certain level? How do you do that?
I think the biggest thing it starts with really doing your research on who's going to be culturally competent. So not every therapist is going to work well with first responders. I
Sure.
went to a lot of really bad therapists that either told me, well, you need to find a different job, or like, oh, what's the worst call that you've ever been on? It's like, why are you asking me that question as my
Yeah.
therapist? Like, no. Just realizing we are a different breed of people, if we're totally honest. And we have a whole different way of looking at humor. We have a whole different way of looking at the world. And really doing your vested time to find somebody who is culturally competent and can understand it when you are sitting across from me and asking me like, or saying, I really wanted to drive over this person with the fire truck today. Or like whatever it is like, I hear you. I've been there too. Like we've all been in spots where we can understand what the dynamic is like to work 48-hour shifts, to have to work, to get mandatory on holidays, to be away from your family, you have no sleep in 2 days, like all the things. Finding a person that can resonate and to really understand what that dynamic is will serve you so far. So that just requires research and some exploration and trying it out, right? Is like, I always go to try method. Keep trying until you find somebody that you do click with, that you do like can resonate with and build that relationship with. On the bigger scale, when it comes to peer support and things like that, is there's some really incredible training agencies out there now that are totally first responder. There is the Public Safety Peer Support Association out of California, does a ton of training and like getting peer support teams geared up, as well as here, I know here in Colorado, we have the first responder trauma counselors. They also do the same thing. So they specifically go take individuals through, both agencies do this. Both they take individuals through 40 hours of training for peer support to help put together the teams. And those kind of agencies, which are really making headway now, are helping set people up with, here's a good resource for this. Here's somebody that can help do a big debrief for you or get you connected with a clinician who is culturally competent So I think leaning into those if you're a department, but the individual just requires research and listening to shows like this and hearing other people and keep asking, keep reaching out till you find somebody that works for you.
Yeah, and the personal connection is a huge part of it. If you don't trust the person you're talking to, you're not gonna make progress. I have
No.
one of the guys I know who does peer support here in North Carolina. He's always said, if you're still talking to somebody 2 years later and you've not moved anywhere, might be time to be thinking about either a new modality or a new therapist to work with. So, a
Yep.
lot to be said for that. And I know on your podcast, one of the things we talked about was attention span. And you bring up a good point. It makes me sound like an old man when I talk about kids these days and their short attention spans. But the value of a podcast like the one you do, sit around the fire, the one we do here, All Clear, these are not the superficial conversations that you can catch in a TikTok reel. This is something that you've got to sit down and listen for 30, 45 minutes. But you take away so much more. And that's why I encourage people to look to podcasts like yours and your unique point of view as being, somebody that's been on the line, somebody that's also, a professional dealing with mental health. So if people want to learn about what you're doing, your services, your podcast, and everything you got going on, how do they find out about you, Ashley?
Sure. Yeah. Well, before I give you that, one thing I'll add to that, what you just said about investing your time into it is like deciding that you're worth it, right? Is you're investing within yourself. So listening to that podcast for 20, 30, 40 minutes and an hour is realizing this is something you're doing incredible for you. And you have to decide that you're worth it to do it. So it's like pretty clear. It's like we would do anything for other people. That's why we're in this industry. But you got to be worth making the investment for. So don't hold back on that. But if you are curious about me or the work that I do, you can get connected with me through my website. It's sitaroundthefire.org. Everything is kind of getting ready to shift here in the next couple weeks with the new year, but you can definitely get in touch through that way and also connected in through the podcast, Sit Around the Fire podcast. We're also on social media, on Instagram, Sit Around the Fire podcast, things like that. So you can definitely get connected in that way. And if I can help point you in the right direction of somebody too, like the network is growing and it's big, which is awesome. So we can help find you support. Even if we don't end up doing work together, I can do my best to help point you in a good direction. But just don't wait. Like, time is of the essence. Like, there's an urgency to this work, and we have to start like showing up for ourselves. We have to start moving out of this pain and suffering and into like living a very healed, transformed, incredibly like good life.
So you heard it from the therapist here. She said podcasting is a good form of self-care. So please like and subscribe to her podcast, also to ours here at All Clear. Ashley, thank you so much for being with us. We'll have all your contact information on our website, allclearpodcast.com. And we always say here on our podcast, light your fire within.